there is nothing that's going to prevent us from being successful. Nothing, because I went through the grind for 3 years. Like, you're going to have to kill me before this company fails. I became comfortable with things going wrong and then just being able to problem solve. We have an opportunity at Heave to build an industry-defining company, and those opportunities don't come around very often. And so what drives me is the ability to do that.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming back to you here today with another king on the stage, my brother, Alex Kraft. Welcome. How we doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Chaz. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, man. You know, I was just commenting, you're in a little phone booth scenario. I remember, actually, I recorded my very first podcast episode, and it looks exactly like your background.
Yep, I am. I'm in a little telephone booth, but my office is an open floor plan, and it's a great office, has a great view, but it's miserable for privacy and having conversations. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm just glad that you made it happen. I think this is going to be a great show for nonetheless of the fact that my first podcast recording I was in a show or in a booth just like that. I still know that guy today. In fact, he's a member of Gathering the Kings, and we have done all kinds of business together because he's sold quite a few properties for me.
Nice.
Anyway, you and I both know some of the same people. Tell us what kind of business that you have here.
So I founded a company called Heave. We are a labor marketplace in the heavy equipment industry. So heavy equipment, thinking of like Caterpillar, John Deere, Komatsu, big yellow iron. We provide customers who own the equipment with access to mechanics to fix it. That's what we do.
Yeah, love it. You play matchmaker service.
We do. It sounds cliche, but the easiest way that people understand it is like Uber for heavy equipment repairs.
Yeah. I got a big piece of equipment. It's broken down. Rather than taking it to my dealership
Correct.
or having to haul it, I just hop on an app that you've built and made work for people just like me, right?
100%. Very easy.
I love it. Love it. Okay. So this is maybe what some people would consider a not sexy business, even though you're in the tech space and you're doing cool stuff. You're in the non-sexy industry of big equipment. Like what's sexy about that? Unless you're in that industry, what I have found, because I've got some friends in not necessarily equipment, but they love buying big pieces of equipment. They totally think it's sexy.
Yeah, but it's not sexy at all. But
I guess my question in leading through all of the non-sexiness here is, why are you doing this, man? Why this business? Why entrepreneurship? Why are you just after it in general, Alex?
Big question. It's funny. I fell into the business 20 years ago, not knowing anything about it. I was a college basketball player, was looking to play professionally, got hurt, had to figure out my life, and just start a career, and fell into the industry and really liked it. I started off selling heavy equipment. Heavy equipment is run very similar to like the auto business model. So, you have dealerships that have a territory, they're franchisee owned. So, just started off in a sales job, calling on customers, which is basically like going door to door and selling $300,000 assets. But I always liked the blue collar nature of the industry. You're dealing with real people, salt of the earth. And that's, how I got my start. And then, worked my way through the company, for 16, 17 years, rose, was management, chief operating officer. And then our company got sold. And that's when I started my entrepreneurship after that.
Why do you think that? I mean, I know sales and entrepreneurship are closely related. Mm-hmm. That's part of my story as well. You can kind of be a little entrepreneur as a sales guy. But why do you think in that moment you just didn't transfer over to another dealership and keep your career going? You took that as an opportunity to say, this is my time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because entrepreneurship was not necessarily in my blood. Like, being on this journey now, like you meet a lot of different people who had a paper route or, I'm from Philadelphia. So like, oh, hey, snow comes down. I hire kids in the block to shovel snow. That wasn't me. I think, I'm a big believer that everything happens like on a certain time schedule or for a reason. And I don't know, my experience, I had just been exposed to so many different people at, like, higher levels, and the more people I got exposed to and gained access to gave me the confidence that I'd kind of seen it all, and I had accumulated, enough wisdom about the industry to have the confidence to, go out on my own, because I could have gone to another dealership, but part of my makeup is that I can't just relive the same nightmare of the same problems over and over again at a different place. Like, it
Sure.
was just there were a couple things, couple opportunities that were so, uh, just out in the open that, I was like, why not me? Because someone was going to do what we're doing today. It's not, we're not, I always tell people, we're not building rockets here. We're solving a very, acute pain point, and
That's right.
why not me? Because like I said, someone was gonna do it, and so that's what gave me the confidence to do it,
That's cool.
and just go for it.
Yeah, it's interesting, that "why not me" phrase. The guy that I was just telling you about that I recorded with my on my very first podcast, he has bracelets that he hands out to his clients
Mhm.
that say, "Why not me?" And I think that that phraseology here, although I think it could be taken in a like a fearful, negative sense, but if you're thinking about it the wrong way. But what I'm hearing you say is, now's the time. Why couldn't I have what these other people have? If they can do it, I can do it.
A
Right?
100%, and that's what it's really helpful to research and read about other companies, in other industries, and, we have a tendency to look at companies, and just because we just stumble upon them at that point in time, they all start from the same place. They start from 0. They had to get their first customers. Everyone who started a company was laughed at, was told that they're crazy, or "Who do you think you are? You think you can be Amazon?" Like, "No, I don't think I can be Amazon," but, it's just everyone has that same path, and it starts
Yeah.
with, are you solving a true pain? At first, ironically, we weren't solving a true pain point, but it was
Interesting.
important to, like, kinda grind through it, and just stick with it, and find that niche, and then just go all in on it.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece that you just gave to us there because I think you're right. I'm gonna give a little preface here and then I'm gonna ask you a question. That a lot of businesses start from excitement or a have to, like, I have to go provide dinner for my family
Mhm.
tonight, and it's not really, I'm not solving much of a need
Right.
really, but I am providing value to some degree somehow, and I'm sure that's what the story was. So give us a little bit of the context there. I'm sure you were providing value, but how did you work through the wait a second, this actually doesn't solve a very very big need.
Yeah, so when we started, it was, he was more of an Expedia type service for contractors to buy and rent equipment easily online. It was right
Okay.
around COVID, which I thought was gonna be a huge, tailwind for us because, person to person meetings were kinda it was harder for people to do that, but
Yeah.
the existing dealerships did not wanna utilize our service. They felt like it was threatening to them because they relied on
Mhm.
sales teams in front of customers. And so, I liken the equipment, the setup to, like, cable companies where, whatever town you live in, if you wanna get cable, there's only 3 providers. It's kinda protected, and that's kinda how heavy equipment has always been. Now,
Yeah.
so it was more of an inconvenience, the way customers had to buy and rent equipment. That's the way I describe it now after, we grinded for 2.5 years doing that. And we
Wow.
transitioned to, well, what is the real pain? Well, the real pain of the customer is getting their equipment fixed because, yeah, there's only 4 providers who can sell and rent to you, but that means that there's only 4 providers who can fix your machine. And
Mhm.
that's where the magic started happening.
Yeah, and rather than waiting on those 4 kingpin
Mhm.
dealers in that area, now you can work with all the purchasers and you give them power.
Exactly. And so it allowed us to serve the customer, and not really need the dealerships to build the business. And one of the things that I did notice, towards my last few years at the dealership was, uh, a lot of really talented mechanics were leaving because they were unhappy, because the wage scale is broken. Like, once again, similar to auto, right? We all get our auto service bill, and it's $200 an hour or whatever it is. Well, what do they pay the mechanic? And it's even more gross in the heavy equipment space. So I started seeing a lot of talented mechanics leaving and going out on their own, being independent, uh, to make true market rate. And that's what connected it for me. So we help customers find those independent mechanics, so they're at a fraction of a dealership price, but the mechanic is keeping a lot more of that wage of the value that they create.
Yeah, exactly. You use the phrase or the kind of the connection point of Uber, but that's in essence what you've done
Mhm.
here is that now a driver can go drive their own car,
Right.
and people around, they don't have to work for a taxi service. Their own hours, own everything. Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. What do you think is like? I mean, you've given us the lay of the
Mhm.
land here, and I'm with you. But like, what burns deep down inside of Alex? Like, what wakes you up in the morning?
Making an impact. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah, I've never made a decision in my career or life that was based on money. I think money comes, uh, at certain points, but, when I kinda, like, think back about my journey, I was an athlete, so I'm highly competitive, and in a weird way, I feel like, I let myself down athletically. I didn't really I didn't I think maybe sports came too easy to me, and therefore I didn't work
Sure.
as hard as I should have, and I feel kind of a level of disappointment in that part of my career, and so I view this entrepreneurship as, like, kind of like a second chance, uh,
Love it.
to really build something incredible. Like, we have an opportunity at Heave to build an industry-defining company, and those opportunities don't come around very often. And so what drives me is the ability to do that, to build a company, to start a company from 0 that 10 years from now, maybe hopefully 5 years from now, people in the industry are like, "Can you believe that we used to get service this way? Like, why wouldn't this is ridiculous." And then to kinda change the game. So that's what drives me.
Yeah, I can relate. I think a lot of people that have athletics in their background. I mean, just look at the stats. Like 99.99999% of them don't go pro. So
Mhm.
we're talking to
Right.
pretty much every listener out there who played any sort of sport. And they might be able to look back and feel the same way that you do. Like, man, if I had just given it more. What do you think the new road? Because you're saying I kind of get a second chance
Sure.
here. Obviously, we're going to have to use principles here because the things tactically you're going to do in business are different than in
Sure.
basketball. But what are some of those things you're going to do different this time?
Well, I think you have to struggle. And that's something that when I was younger with sports, there wasn't a ton of struggle. And so then when it came up, maybe I didn't react the best way. And
Sure.
with business, like when we decided to start the company, it was struggle for 2.5 years. And it really, for me, was, like I said, at least we were solving a pain at some point. But really, entrepreneurship was more of a battle, like me against me. It was how are you gonna respond to it? And, so I've definitely grown in terms of that aspect, and it's just, believing in what I was doing and just sticking with it. And I became comfortable with, um, things going wrong and then just being able to problem solve. I think one of the problems, it was good for me to be in a corporate environment because that's what I learned those lessons. The problems in the corporate environment was, uh, problems come up and then it's like blame game. It's like, all right, how do I just maintain and keep my paycheck coming every 2 weeks? Let's deny the problem, or all right, let's just blame someone else for the problem, and then therefore nothing gets fixed. And then with this, it's you just come into it like, hey, things are going to go wrong. But the best part about having a young company, a startup company, is that it's all a blank sheet of paper. Problems come up, just come up with a solution. You're agile, you can fix things, and then that makes you better over time. So I've loved the challenge of that and the energy, and the ability to move quickly and change things and improve. Like, I really want to improve in every facet of my life.
Yeah. The scenario in basketball, tell me if this brings up any maybe good or bad memories, I don't know, but when I think about some of my basketball days and some of the tournaments we played in and stuff, it's like oftentimes, at least there's got to be a stat around this somewhere, but if you lose in the first round, then you can always make it back to the championship and you got that one loss. As opposed to if you never lose, then you make it to the championship undefeated. And I just always felt more confident going into that championship game with a loss.
Mhm.
It was, I mean, obviously I had less to lose. Like it's a total mental situation. But tell us about that. Like, how does that apply? Because I'm hearing you say that for your business. You know,
I see it as the first thing I think about when you bring that up is my kids. So I've been coaching my kids' teams and hyper competitive in Tampa area, like flag football is huge. I see it every day, every season. There are certain teams that are stacked, and these kids never lose. And then I see them get into a competitive game and they fold because they're not used to being in a game where, this possession matters. Like they're used to beating everybody by
right?
40 points. And I think that is the wrong thing. And because we talk about a lot of this stuff in business and sports. You learn most from your mistakes. And then I watch a lot of these youth sports teams and they stack the team. And so there's never any mistakes. And I just think it's setting your kids up for failure. And so that's the first thing that I think about because when you lose, it forces you to look at certain things and to change,
That's right.
unless you just are okay with
Unless you
losing.
don't. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Which is a whole nother level of mindset. But I think the point there is that it forces the
Mhm.
reflection, which you kind of referenced a few minutes ago, which is I had to actually like look at the way I was
Yeah.
responding to the loss or to the failure. I'm going to use this as a huge transition point here because I like to talk about the wins and the
Mhm.
losses of business. Let's just go right into that loss for you since we've kind of highlighted the importance of it. You're right. We do, learn a ton from it. What was that hour for you where it was just really, really bad? What can we learn?
Whew, really, really bad. Um, I don't know. I think about this a little differently. Like I don't, when I've made bad decisions, I don't necessarily get hypercritical over them because they are learning opportunities. Like when I reflect back on my career in terms of like bad decisions, I think more of like decisions I didn't make. So
Interesting.
like personnel decisions. Like I think we got to trust our instincts. And there were plenty of times where my instincts told me like, hey, this wasn't the right person, or hey, we got to do something different. And I didn't. And of course, it played out and I should have acted. And so, like, those are more of the mistakes that I've made that stand out. Whereas, like, for example, I explained to you a little bit about our journey where we started the company and we didn't have the right product for the market.
Yep.
That's not a mistake because it forced me to figure it out, and it
That's right.
forced me to go through the struggle to the point where, like, it would have been easy to quit, and I didn't, and because I didn't, there is nothing that's gonna prevent us from being successful. Nothing, because I went through the grind for 3 years. Like, you're gonna have to kill me before this company fails. And that wouldn't have been the case because it would be really easy to say, well, if you rewound to 3 years ago and you should have just started Heave doing service. Well, if we hit instant
Right.
success, probably be a different company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you're right. It's not like we're looking for opportunities to, purposely shove our face into the to the curb, but the fortitude or the resolve that I just heard you say. You said, "You're gonna have to kill me before this company doesn't become
Yeah.
successful." That level of, like, it's resolution, really. It's a commitment, it's decision, it is. Not it will be, it
Right.
is.
And it comes from earning something.
Yes. How how does the listener who maybe doesn't quite feel this way yet, but they've had some failures and they're like, "Well, I didn't feel that coming out on the other side." What can you offer to them?
I don't, it's, we all have our own separate journey. I think it took me a while to feel like to become, to like really know who I am, to develop the confidence in what I was going to do. We all arrive at different points. I think so much of it is like understanding who you are, understanding what drives you, and just looking out at what opportunity is and then not being afraid to go for it. That's the biggest thing. Like, and it's hard, right? Because I was in a very comfortable place. I could have gone a different direction, but had I been 10 years younger, maybe I wouldn't have. But there comes a point in everybody's career where it's like, hey, stop talking and act. And it's okay to go for it. It's okay to act. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that action is spot on. I think that you're right in giving them those words. I want to hit one more piece here on this, quote unquote failure of yours, because you kind of painted this picture. You had played ball, you had done well, clearly. Really, the only thing that had kept you from even winning at the highest level was an injury, probably in your mind something that you couldn't even control.
Sure.
You start selling. Clearly, you're selling well, and you're making good money because you said that you could have just kept going and it would have been pretty comfortable. All up into boom, you smash your face for 2.5 years in the scenario that you just described to us. And so, I guess zooming out, the fortitude or the resolve or the persistence that you can now look back on and say that you had, what were the components that you had beforehand when it was easy that you were still building inside of yourself? Obviously it was, athletics and selling, all those things mindset wise, but what were those things that maybe the listener can take away?
One of the things when I look back is I cared too much about what people thought. And I think that's a characteristic that's important. If you're going to build something successful, you got to let go of that, which I did.
Yeah.
Seeking validation, because like I said, you do enough research on people, even with these really successful companies, you think it comes easy, and it doesn't for anybody. And one of the things that's important to understand is that you have to go against the grain if you want to build something special, and so therefore you can't listen or care about what other people say. And that was hard for me to get over because starting the company, you want other people to recognize the idea, and you want other people to tell you it's a great idea, and it's bravo, right? And then when nothing's happening for 2 years, I came to the realization it doesn't matter what people say. And we had plenty of people, and I'm sure you've dealt with this too. There is a certain segment of people who tell you it's a great idea, but they don't buy from you. And so like, where is that getting you? And so it came to the realization of it doesn't matter. Like you just got to make it happen, and go against the grain, feel comfortable with confrontation, which growing in Philadelphia, I was very comfortable with confrontation. So that wasn't a problem, but it was hard for me to get past that. Like, hey, you can't be caught up in what other people say.
Yeah. Let's press on this a little bit, because I think it could even be one of the good decisions that you've made that I also think I've made, is you have to start eliminating that voice, whether it's our own voice or the voice of others, where it's like we can't really care about that. But to your point, it's a whole lot harder done than said, especially when you have some accolades where they're like, I mean, I can think of even for myself. I have buddies that have great companies that love what I'm doing with Gathering the Kings and the Peer Mastermind and tell me, this is great, I love it.
Sure.
But aren't members.
Right.
It's like, and it's probably better that way, because, I want a friendship and not necessarily, whether it was that old adage, clients become friends before friends become clients, Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. But it's like, okay, I before this, I sold sales training. And before that, I had, I've still got franchises. And it's like, I can't tell you how many times with my franchise edible arrangements, it's Christmas time and we're doing huge orders for big old companies. And the people that I know that have companies that do Christmas gifts for their people don't order
Yeah.
edible arrangements. And you're like, wait a second. I feel like I'm on an island here. Talk to this for just a half second here, as far as like maybe how you came over it, what the listener can do to kind of like press up against this voice that you're just like, am I doing the right thing? It's in essence what they're saying.
Yeah, I think it comes back to instincts. Like, are you doing the right thing or not? Do you believe in what you're doing? Yeah, because if you don't believe it, how else is it going to happen? So you have
Right.
to be committed, and you have to I'm amazed at people who start companies where they don't really like, they have one experience with something that they don't like it. They're like, you know what, I'm going to change this. Like, I'm amazed at it. Like, there is no one path for everyone. Like I said, for me, I just lived in this industry for so long, and I saw the problem for 18 years. That was my journey. But you have to believe. You have to, a lot of people talk to you about how, you have to, even when there are days when you don't believe, you have to. And it's such a critical thing. Like, because otherwise it's really easy to quit. I listened to a bunch of different podcasts. Every company has like 3 or 4 near-death experiences. It just comes along with the territory. And it's just how you respond. How you respond matters so much more than anything else.
Yeah, than the actual circumstances. You're 100% right. Okay, so I'm in this moment. I'm really struggling with my belief. I'm even possibly considering quitting.
Mhm.
What do I do?
You double down, you don't quit, you analyze, like, what's our move? You always have a move.
Yeah.
We reached that point a few times, and we figured out a move. I listened to a really smart venture capitalist. Her name's Sarah Tavel with Benchmark. They are like top 5 VCs in Silicon Valley. And I was listening to her talk about how, things come up in your business that you think it's existential. It's not. It just forces you to come up with a solution. And when you do that, it always makes you stronger. Always. And we've had a couple of those instances, especially over money early on. And we figured out a temporary solution, and it helped, make us more, resolute for other things that came down.
Yeah. It makes me think of a podcast that Alex Hormozy was on in the last couple, 2-3 months. And he was talking about, if I had to, create a circumstance that was going to build the man that I wanted to become, I'd identify who I want to become, and I'm going to build that man. Would I give him easy circumstances? Would I give him a business that wins automatically? Would I, would we want that for our children? To your point about
No.
the football earlier, it's like, no, actually, I'd probably put him in circumstances that challenged his resolve, that created a situation where it made him want it even more and allowed him to press through. To maybe not win it on his first time, because it should make you want it even more the second.
That's right.
Yeah. Any comments on that type of mindset?
No, I mean, what's the quote? I'll butcher it, but it's like, hard times make weak or soft men. Soft men make hard times. Like, it's so true.
Yeah. 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 And so on that, kind of like that mindset of that eventually, I mean, and I think the stats say eventually wealth is lost in the 3rd generation. Let's talk about that for a second, because you've got kids, I've got kids. Clearly we're not trying to just give our kids the silver spoon. I think we can both agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
But the other end of the spectrum, what I have found is that if you don't give them anything, then they're just blazing literally the same trail that you just blazed. And that to me is just the dumbest thing ever. Is there a middle? How do you find the middle?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of trial and error, because kids are all different, right? Their personalities are different. That is, parenting is so damn difficult. I find business to be really easy compared to parenting.
That's honest.
You're right, because you don't want it to be easy, and you have to like lay back and let them fail, but you don't want them to fail. You don't want them to fail too bad. Like, I have my oldest is a son, and I have 2 daughters. Completely different personalities. I think my son's more sensitive, and so he struggles with confidence. My youngest daughter is a total boss, so I don't have to worry about her failing, because she'll probably just like talk a teacher into doing something.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but yeah, it's really difficult, and you just gotta find your way through it. You have to be able to change your tactic. You have to be able to, I think back to sports. I'll share a story about probably the best coach I ever had. He was my high school basketball coach. He coaches at University of Richmond now. We were really good in high school. We won like the district in Philadelphia, which is a big deal when I was a junior. So going into my senior year, we had very high expectations. We come out, we lose our first 2 games. It was just like kind of devastating. And we had Sunday morning practice at like 6 a.m. And everyone was dreading that Sunday morning practice. Like, we're gonna die. And he comes in and he had a football. And he's like, we're gonna pick teams and we're gonna play football. And you're just like, okay. And then I think we won like 15 in a row after that or something. But it's the ability to be present and the ability to kind of read the room, and I think that's important with like kids and also with business too, right? Like understanding where they are in that moment. Like it doesn't do you any good if my son is kind of struggling with confidence, he's kind of beaten down, to hammer him. How could you, how could you get a D on that test or whatever it is? Like, well, he doesn't want to get a D, but knowing when to support, knowing when to push, it's hard. You don't really know because we haven't, at least with business, we can we can reference like 5 years ago we encountered this problem, blah blah blah. With parenting, there is no real guide. Like I can't, my son's only 13 once, right? My daughter's only 11, so you just kind of have to feel it out and try to do the best you can and hope that it works out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's leadership in general. We're trying to do the best we can. But inside of that, I heard you say a few minutes ago that we're always trying to get better. And even in those phrases that you just gave to us, I hear you trying to get better as a dad,
Yep.
but also as a leader. How are you showing? And again, I love this kind of back and forth that we're playing in family
Mhm.
and business, but how are you showing up as a person that's like always getting better? But then how does that look? Or how are you trying to portray that to employees or your partners, strategic partners, VCs, whatever it is,
Sure.
and also your family?
Yeah, I think it's the first important piece is being genuine and being a real person, like not shying away from like making mistakes. I think that is the probably the most important, because in order to get better, you have to acknowledge that you didn't do a good job, that
Right.
you
Or you're not
failed,
there yet.
right? And so I experienced that in my career. We made the company I used to work for made a major management change with the president, and then I inherited the role, and I had to oversee I had to oversee service. I'd never worked within service, and very early on, I met with all of the leaders of our service department, and I told them, I don't know service. You know it better than me. So I'm going to lean on you to help take ownership in what we need to change. And I think some people look at that as weakness, which is a major mistake. Uh,
Yeah.
and I could just see, the air in the room, like, oh, okay, now my opinion is being valued. And it helped me learn about what needed to be fixed, but also helped me lead. And so I think, not pretending that you have all the answers in every aspect is really important. Leaning, s- portraying that to your kids, I think is important. Like, hey, because I think all kids get to a certain point where they come to the realization like their parents are just normal people too, but they don't have all the answers. So you might as well let them in on that a little earlier, because I think it just changes the dynamic and allows you um, to improve. And you know, later on in life, I'm more open to trying new things and failing than I was when I was younger.
Why do you think that is?
It's coming. I think it was just more of like that self-realization of I don't have to be the best at everything. But if I do want to be great, I've got to like go back to a beginner's mindset and try new things and then work on my weaknesses, because then ultimately it makes you better and stronger.
Yeah. I have this phrase that I use inside of Gathering the Kings the phrase is grateful but not done.
Mhm.
And I can give a little bit of perspective there, but this is the first time that you've heard that. What are your thoughts when you hear grateful but not done?
Yeah, I love it. I connect with it because, you know, I always feel like I'm never done. There's always more, right? Like, uh, I listen to, do you listen to David Goggins at all?
Oh yeah.
That guy, always just seeking a little bit more, a little bit more,
Yeah.
a little bit more. Yeah. So grateful for where you are, but yeah, not done. I love that. That resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, the Goggins topic, really, we'll just call it a topic because that's that's really what it is. We were just in St. George, Utah,
Mm,
and hiking in Zion National Park, and
beautiful.
some incredible, yeah, just beautiful. And one of the guys in the Peer group, he just ran a 50K ultra, and the trip was before this, and so he was preparing, getting up early every morning and running and all this fun stuff. So we're up hiking, and he's like, Goggins has probably already been over here. Goggins is, yeah, which I loved every second of it because there's that one. I don't even know, maybe it's Joe Rogan, but he's like, we landed on. Oh, actually, it's Elon. We landed on the moon,
Yep.
or on Mars rather, and Goggins has already been there. He's run all over the place.
I did hear that. I love that. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I think it just puts it into perspective. Obviously, he's a huge excuse remover.
Mhm.
This mindset of that there's always another level. For me, it's like, well, if I'm literally admitting to the fact that I want to go to another level, it means I'm not there yet.
Right.
Isn't that in itself a level of humility to know that, like, I haven't arrived, even though I might know what I know and
Sure.
be confident with what I know and be confident with the success that I have? There's another level,
Definitely.
right? There's always another level.
Always. Yeah. And I try to like learn from everyone that I interact with, junior people. It doesn't always have to be like a mentor type individual. Like there's people have unique perspectives, and that's something that you can always try to find something you can pick up from somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to use this opportunity to transition to a topic that's very close to me, but I can tell that it's probably going to be top of the tongue for you as well. I like the word obsession, and I like going all in on my business,
Mhm.
but I'm also a fan of going all in on my kids. We've already talked
Yeah.
about that, my marriage and my health and my faith and all the other areas of life. Tell me how you are going all in. You're in the first couple, years really
Sure.
still of entrepreneurship, and you're obviously obsessed. You've already clearly articulated that.
Yep.
But how are you also obsessed in all the other areas, kind of at the same time?
It's very difficult. Uh, if you had my wife on, she probably would tell you that I'm not. I'm obsessed in other areas.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
honest.
It's really, really difficult uh, to be present and to have to be obsessed in all the different areas, because my
Yeah,
mind is always thinking of like the next move in business. uh it's something I struggle with, frankly.
yeah,
Because I don't know how you can be balanced, especially early. Maybe a few years from now
yeah.
it'll be easier, when we have this thing on a more of a rhythm, and I feel like we're not grinding every day. But
Mm.
it just try to be um devoted and present in that moment, which is very difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as just high performers, we're naturally going to be thinking ahead anyway. And so it's tough to be present. And then on top of that, you're right. Business, life, marriage, faith. I mean, all those things have seasons.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's really tough to build a really successful business without being completely like, you know, doubled down, as you said
Yeah.
earlier. And you're really like in that midst of it now. I mean, even though you guys are doing well, you're in a double down season. I appreciate the honesty there because I think that actually will free a lot of the audience because I can remember those moments for me even. And a lot of that time it was just conversation with my wife around I'm working this and then I'm coming here and then I'm going to go back to work
Yep.
here and trying to give some sort of a light at the end of the tunnel, but knowing how she can support me or how she can, work within the goal really, because it's not just
Yeah,
you.
I
I
think
mean, yes, you're the only one at work, right? But
what
because it,
seems to help recently is being open about what I'm doing it for. Like,
yeah,
we've
that's
had
good.
this discussion recently in our household where I'm like, "Look, I'm doing this for us, for the kids, for you. Like, I'm not doing this for personal, uh, glory or wealth, or, I'm doing this for us." And, that I think has helped a little bit take the pressure off. Cause like, look, everyone who started a business, I'm sure you're no different. You know,
Yeah.
you have some of those hard conversations at home where it's like, hey, you're not present. You're more focused on this and this and this. And we all have those
Yeah.
discussions. And so I don't know, it's just part of the deal. You just have to accept it and try to, figure out what works best for everybody.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're going to continue to grow in that area because I already know that you have a belief that there's another level.
Yeah.
There's another level to go to in marriage with your wife and in family with your kids. Same thing for all the other areas. And so it's like, they may not all be on a level 10 all at the same
No.
time, but there's always another level. And so I'm always constantly pushing. I got to push this one up and then I push this one up and I push this one up. And sometimes that just looks different,
Mhm.
at different times. Communication being one of those very key components. I mean, come on. When has communication not been the component in leadership and business, basketball? Like, it doesn't even
Absolutely.
matter,
100% in everything.
in literally everything. All right. Well, let's talk about the team building aspect of your business.
Ooh,
You've got kind of several components.
love team
I want to
building.
know your idea on team building within your business, but then how does that team then connect the other pieces? Because you're playing matchmaker again. So a lot of people, a lot of communication, a lot of team building going on
Love
here.
team building. This has been one of my my favorite parts. The company I used to work for, 300 employees, it was really frustrating because we didn't choose them. I was a part of an organization. You're just going to have X percentage of people who are going to have a certain mindset. This is always how we do things and blah, blah, blah. And I felt like I couldn't change or impact the overall organization beyond a certain point. The most fun part about starting a company from scratch is that you get to choose everyone you work with. And you set the imprint. I have loved this part. The number one thing for me is passion. It's not experience. It's especially with a startup company, you have to find people who share the passion in the problem that you're solving because it's going to be hard. It's funny, like we brought in a couple salespeople. So we raised Silicon Valley venture capital, was a huge deal for us. And it was in August, it closed. And so we were able to start hiring salespeople. And, I wanted salespeople who were in the industry who knew the pain of the problem. So we found a few. And I remember early on in the recruiting process, they're like, oh, this is going to be easy to sell. I love this, which is great, which you want. But, myself and our head of sales, we told them like, look, we appreciate that, but it's going to be a lot harder than what you think because we're changing people's habits and behavior. And we hired them, and because we knew that they were so passionate about what we were doing, and it helped because they didn't hit it out of the park the first 90 days,
Mm-hmm.
but we knew from the passion that, they were going to stick with it. And it didn't matter how many no's they got. They knew the value that we were providing. So passion is number one. And
Yeah.
just being able to bring like-minded people in that you see, they know that they're changing an industry, and it's fantastic. It brings so much energy. We're building the culture, whereas like when you're in an existing organization, the culture's kind of set, and it's really, really difficult to change a culture, once it's kind of deep rooted. So like those parts have been really a lot of fun.
Yeah, the example that you gave a few minutes ago of stacking the little kids football team, in essence, that's what you get to do in
Mhm.
business now,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
for the right reasons,
For the right
and
reasons.
not for, yeah, exactly. Okay, just real quick here, just tactical follow up on this. Is there a particular, obviously you said relationships, you're kind of reaching back into your previous relationships. Anything else that you're doing, whether it be recruiting, hiring, culture building, that you can just give us a couple of nuggets here for the listener?
Yeah, culture building is really important to me. It's important to set, to lead by example, right? Like, I try to make sure that, I don't ask anyone else on the team to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I think that's very important. I want to set the direction, but I also want to still get my hands dirty in every aspect. Like, I think, I've been a part of organizations before that are very top down, and it's cancerous. And And people, they respond best when they know that you give a shit about them performing at their top level. And I think that's what breeds really successful culture is, our salespeople know that, I want them to do well and that I will do anything that I possibly can to help them, and, at all different levels of organization, you want everybody want to feel responsible in the success of the organization. And so that's really culture building is so important and something that I pay very close attention to. And, it's a daily, kind of check in for me.
Yeah. It makes me think of, there's several points, but there's a certain point in The Last Dance.
Mm,
And Michael's like, look, man, this is the way I played. Okay.
yeah.
And I not only wanted to win, but I wanted them to win. I wanted us to experience championships. And if you didn't want to play like that, that's fine. But like when you're going to be around me, that's how we're freaking playing.
Yeah. And I
Um,
remember that exact quote. I was a huge Jordan fan, huge Bulls fan. And
yeah.
dude, there's nothing better than experiencing success and winning with a group of people. I think it is better because you have someone to share it with.
That's right.
Sometimes when you reach individual success, like that's great. It's what you want, but you look around and it was just you. And so like I still, some of my best friends are my college teammates, and we still get together and talk about, do you remember, when we achieve team success? It's just
Right.
it's an incredible feeling. And that's, I think, the best companies build that type of organization where everyone contributes, everyone feels a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's powerful when the group can get there, but we're also made for the group. We're like, that's how we're
Mhm.
designed, is to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
Definitely.
And there's always that one agitator like Jordan
Yeah.
or like you and your organization who agitates not only the thoughts of the team, but is like literally raising the standard, raising the culture, raising the
Right.
energy of the room. Everybody knows when they walk in.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And we always, and I think we all have that example personally when we're younger. Like you have to be pushed. It's just human nature to seek comfort. It's human nature to, like, you know what, I did enough. But we all have those situations where someone was like, no, you've got to keep pushing a little bit more. Like I said, a little bit more. And then you're kind of, you see exactly, oh, okay, well, when I do give a little bit more, this is what happens. And you need people like that in your organization who won't accept it and who get the best out of you.
Yeah. All right. Last question here for you. Alex, I got to know that if we rewound the clock,
Mhm.
you get to pick the age because I know you got some different segments of life that I'm sure you could probably pull from here. But rewind the clock. You get to tap on the younger
Mhm.
Alex, tap on a shoulder, and you whisper in his ear. What do you say?
Ooh, what do I say? Um, I don't know. Things will happen the way that they're supposed to. Like I think when I was younger, I was in a rush. Yeah, I wanted things to happen. I think it's common for you to measure yourself against other people, which is not healthy. And I don't know. I've always been a person that had to learn through my experience, learn the hard way. Like I could read all this stuff and I could, seek advice from all successful people, but I probably wasn't going to follow it. I had to, I had to take the lumps myself. But that it'll happen according on the timeline that it's supposed to. And so, like I said, without certain scars, I wouldn't be in a position to take advantage of certain things today. So as much as I would like to have played in the NBA, it probably, just didn't happen. And this is a great opportunity here that had I not had scars, I probably wouldn't be able to take full advantage of it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a grateful perspective there, but a not done attitude for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, how can we find you? Number one, if we're an entrepreneur and we just want to connect with you, or maybe we need your service. Maybe we're either buying or needing
Yeah.
equipment repaired, or maybe we're the repair guy.
I'm active on the social media channels like LinkedIn, my individual account. I'm very active. Active on Facebook. My email, alex@heaveapp.com. I'm very active there. I answer pretty much anyone who reaches out to me that's not trying to sell me something. But yeah, I'm out there, trying to build the brand and be the front face of the company. So, you know, open to any and
Sounds good.
all
Well,
reach out.
yeah, I appreciate that. We'll put all that in the show notes as well for them to be able to connect with you. I hope that they do, because obviously you're a top level guy. Just really appreciate you being here and taking your time away from your team.
Yeah.
But to speak so highly of what you're doing, and even just the pivots that you've made and the success that you're seeing, I love the authenticity that you brought here today. So thank you for that, Alex. Blessings to you and all that you're doing to your family and in your business, all the impact that you're making in an industry.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and tell our story to your audience. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.